Kristin, it's good to connect with you and have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Good, good, good. No, you're very welcome. It's great to have you on. Yeah, I just thought I'd start by kind of asking how you kind of got into like personal development, and you told me you got a background in comedy as well.
hmm so I've always been a people person. I've always been someone that's been entertaining and trying to like make people lighten up and laugh my whole life. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was a little girl. So making my mom laugh and just kind of keeping the mood light at home just was how I
Mm,
was. I've always loved, I was a class clown. I hated school. Thought school wasn't easy for me. So I would always use my personality. I've always been fascinated by people. I've always been obsessed with watching and just looking around, and I notice all these little things about people that other people probably don't notice. I love being like on the transit or the train, just looking at different people. So I'm just fascinated by people in general and stories and helping people. So it's always been something I've always just done naturally. And,
mm.
and now with the internet and the world of coaching, I realize that it's actually a whole industry. So now I'm kind of trying to figure out what my niche would be or what my actual specific gift is that I could help people do. So through my Instagram live show that I started during coronavirus, I've really been reaching out and chatting with a lot of people, and a lot of people have been DMing me and saying like, "Oh, that really helped me," or "Thank you so much for sharing that story," or "Your attitude just makes me so happy." So anything I can give to people is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I think it's great that you kind of got that about you, and that you have that general kind of interest in people, and you want to help people, and you're empathic, and I think it's important to be like that as a person. I think it's important to have that understanding and that kind of curiosity around people, because I think we're all kind of interested, and we've all kind of got our own stories
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a story to tell, and I think so many people don't realize the power that they have. Like everybody has either overcome something, has a passion about something, and just because maybe you lost something and somebody else lost something, but you might have lost something differently, or you might have dealt with it differently. So I think that's why a lot of people don't realize the value in their own story, because you just
Mm,
never know what's going to strike a nerve for another person. So one of the things I love about meeting interesting people or talking, because sometimes just when I be bartending, just having a conversation with somebody, you won't believe what commonality you have. We all have so much in common with each other that we don't realize. So
yeah.
sometimes through conversation, you find a commonality, you find a similar experience, or you learn something from somebody and it helps you maybe either get further in your life or work through something on yourself. So I think that's what's so fascinating about talking, conversation, and sharing stories with one another.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. And I think, like, especially in hospitality, what you said in bar
Yeah.
work, restaurants, is that, you're constantly meeting so many different people,
Mhm.
and, not one person's the same, and they're from different backgrounds. And you can always find that kind of like same ground with some people. And it's pretty fascinating, when you're in that trade, you meet all these different people. And yeah, it definitely does push you out your comfort zone as well, because you're working, you're under pressure, plus you're providing a service, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that's everybody should do the service industry at least once in their life. I think
Yeah.
because there is such a skill set that you learn from it. And I think it just makes you a better person. It makes you a better communicator. You learn to multitask. There's just such a skill set in that industry that can make you a better business person. It helps you just in so many different areas of life, adapting to adversity, overcoming a problem, solving problems, being able to just deal with different personalities. Think about when you get into a business and or
Mm,
you're working in an office, you're dealing with a multitude of personalities on a day-to-day basis. And
mm,
you don't have to like everybody in the office. You're not going to. I don't always like everybody I work with in the restaurant. I don't always like the customers that are in front of me for the whole entire shift. But you have to adapt to that. You have to figure out, how can I handle this person? How can I work with this person? And how can I work around that person's things that I don't like? And I think that's one of the skill sets that I think that I've been really good at from meeting so many different people and working with so many different people and working in that high pressure. I like to observe. So when I come into a new job, like for instance, right now I'm in a new job. I've been at the same place for 10 years. I've
mm,
always bartended. It's a small staff. with coronavirus restrictions, it's been really difficult to bartend. So I picked up a morning job at a restaurant doing breakfast. Never served breakfast in my life. It's back on the floor. There's a big staff. There's multiple managers. So I had to kind of really go back into those old skill sets I have. Come in. I'm quiet. I watch. I observe. I learn. I learn the different personalities of the different managers. I learn who everybody's little idiosyncrasies are. And then it helps you be more successful in that environment because you know how to work around the different personalities instead of going against it. So many people will be like, I don't like that person, and I'm gonna come in and like be mean to them. Like, it's not gonna make your day better. It's just gonna make you want to not go to work. So I say, okay, this person's a difficult person. I'm gonna deal with this person this way. This person's easygoing. Gonna deal with this person this way. And it makes your life easier if you can learn how to adapt to different personalities. So that's a really great skill set.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. And I think like something like being dynamic, isn't it? Being able to adapt and just kind of like sit on the background kind of thing and just like observe and do what you got to do. And I think it works better in that way, especially, it's high pressure in those, environments, and, you're providing a service, the standards. I remember when I was working in like a fine dining kind of like hotel, and it was bananas, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but it was like that Wolf of Wall Street film where you're in the office and like the chefs are like competing. They're like shouting each other, calling each other things, and like if you make a mistake,
Right, you don't even want to go in there. I know, because you're like, I made a mistake. I know. It's such an intense environment, and I think so many people don't get that. So then when you get out of that environment and you go into an office, you're like, this is not like, this is nothing. Like someone threw a piece of bread at me, like when I was like 20 years. Like I have so many stories from my early years of being in that industry where I would have managers that would pinch me, like female managers that would pinch you, or people that would push you, like, so to me, I'm 49, so it was a very different world when I started in the service industry. It was almost like a very tough industry where you had to like have thick skin, because they would almost train. I think they're mean because they know that a customer is going to be mean and you can't cry on the floor. So it's almost like they train you to like toughen up mentally so that you can handle like the pressure when the people are mean to you at the table, that you can be like, okay, let me get someone to help you with that. So I a lot of times think that it'd be so funny if you took the service industry rules and put into corporate America, because I think it'd be really interesting to see how people would react, because there's so many rules and regulations of how we can speak to each other and what we can say and what we can't say. And I'm like, well, that was never how I was brought up. So it's kind of funny. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely interesting. And I think there's a lot of things that people get away with in that industry in catering. And then I was thinking, some of the things I've seen and witnessed and experienced, it's like you wouldn't get away with that in an office job or anything like that. You'd be out the door. But I know that when I worked in this particular place, we had 6 head chefs and 3 or 4 managers in the space of like 5 months, and this is during the summer period. And you didn't know whether to get attached to people because they might be gone the next day, things like this. So, but I think, like you said, it is definitely builds your character and a lot of transferable skills you can take from that.
Right, 100%. I think it's so interesting. I think that's the thing about life. You have to adapt. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people aren't really being trained, whether it be mindset, whether it be mental toughness, whether it be adapting. I think that's a thing that would really be beneficial for younger people to learn and actually help people learn how to coping, dealing, because I think that's why so many people are struggling. And when you learn how to kind of be like, okay, I got to roll with the punches, or I have to, okay, this is only going to be for a minute. I got to figure out, I got to compartmentalize it and say, how can I figure it out and move on to the next thing? I think that would really help a lot more people, because then they can kind of deal. Sometimes something hits somebody and they're just wiped out. They can't even, and you're like, whoa, okay, take a deep breath. What can you do about it? What can't you do about it? How can you get through the rest of the day? And that's something I've had to do with some younger coworkers. They can get rattled, to see if to kind of like help them, like take a deep breath, go up back, take a breather, come back in, shake it off. The next person's going to be nicer, deal with the nice person. And I would sometimes switch customers, because I know how to kind of like navigate those people. So I think it's really interesting to kind of help people learn how to adapt to different personalities, because you can't change. You're not going to be able to make everybody act the same way. So we have to really train people how to deal with lots of different people instead of trying to make everybody be the same, because it's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I take things personally when I first started working out in restaurants and things, and I would get frustrated and angry and go through all these emotions and then carry that through in the work and then perhaps be, not negative, but you kind of let the people know I was a bit pissed off with them. And I think over time, like I just kind of learned just to kind of have it bounce off or kind of not take it personally. It's their issue, feel sorry for them, and kind of see it from a different perspective. And
Right.
it's not worth the stress on your job because you've got a million other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's difficult, because when you're in that role, you might have things off the manager, you might have things off the chef, then you got things off
Yep.
your work colleagues, and then the people coming
Mm-hmm.
in. So,
Yeah. And then you
like
only
you
have
said,
your personal stuff. So, like, I mean, if you're not having, there's like a thing about the service industry, like you're kind of on stage. So you kind of
yeah,
have to learn how to kind of like check it at the door and then come in, because you're there to kind of give people an experience. So that's something that I think that you learn. And then, like you said, when you're young, you might be a little bit offended easily, or you might kind of like get rattled easily. But then as you kind of get into it longer and longer, you learn like, oh, that cook is just salty and he's mean and he's sassy, and like, okay, I'm just going to ignore him and just try to do the right way. Or you try to learn
mm,
how to do things. I try to learn like what people like. There's certain personalities that fire me up. I try to learn how to work around them to
mm,
diffuse it as much as possible, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah,
certain people there's people that are button pushers,
mm,
so if someone doesn't work well with my personality, I try to work around them. And
yeah,
it kind of helps you. And especially like with coworkers, you have to deal with them. You're going to deal with them
mm,
every day unless one
yeah,
of you leave the job. So if you're not going to leave the job, you're going to have to learn how to adapt around them.
yeah. No, I think that's really important in life. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember a chef saying to me, you're not going to like everyone who you work with; it's how well you work with them. And that always kind of like stuck in my head because I always kind of wanted to be liked and things
Yeah.
like that. And then it made me just realize I was like, well, yeah, you're probably not going to get on with everyone, and it's kind of how you work in that role,
Mm-hmm.
and adapt, isn't it? And I think I, yeah, there's definitely a lot of skills and quality you can take from it and apply it to
Mm-hmm.
life. And I think when you've been through a certain situation where you've thrown out your comfort zone and it's difficult and it's stressful, it's kind of how you grow, isn't it? You can kind of take
Mm-hmm.
that forward with you.
I think so. I think that's a great point, because you saying that you like to be liked. Like, who doesn't want to be liked? I mean, we all
Yeah.
want to be liked, right? And I think that's what so many people are struggling with in life in general. You look at social media, or you look at school, anything that you're doing, right? If you're in school, you want to be liked. You want to be part of the group. You want to be at that table, right? If you go to if you go to a job, you want people to want to invite you out after work for drinks or for a snack, right? So it's something inside of us that we want to be liked. But you have to also understand that you're not always going to adapt to not everybody's going to gravitate towards you. And that's going to be okay, because if you can kind of let go of that need for likeness, right?
Mm.
It'll kind of allow you to be a little bit more free being yourself. And I think that just comes with age and experience and different scenarios and throughout your life. You might realize like, oh, maybe in high school, I wasn't the most popular kid, but I had three really good chums or three really good friends that I really
Mm.
connected with. And they were like my go-to for those 4 years of high school. Or, at my job, maybe I'm not friends with the people in that department, but I have one or two friends that I connect to. So I think people have to stop worrying so much about being liked by everybody, and
Mm.
putting the energy into the people that do like you, and
Yeah.
really and grow those relationships, because the chances are you pleasing everybody's probably not going to happen, and this is going to probably make yourself crazy. So I think that's a really
Mm.
great point. That's a great lesson that
Yeah.
that chef told you.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, exactly. And it does it makes sense now, but I think, at the time I was a bit like, what? What's he talking about? But then when
Yeah.
I thought about it more, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And it's quite powerful, isn't it? And
Hmm.
I, I was thinking about what you mentioned when we first connected. Like you said, you do like kind of stand up you still do stand. You still do.
Yeah, I do. I was doing it a lot prior to everything. So now
Yeah.
I haven't been doing it because of everything being on
COVID.
lockdown. But I
Yeah.
do love to use humor. Just
Yeah.
even like my conversations, when I'm trying to give information out to people, I like to use a little bit of humor, because especially when you're dealing with difficult topics or really hard things, humor is an easy way to kind of bring people in and kind of open up the conversation. So that's one of the things that gravitated me to get back into comedy, was find a way to kind of bring difficult topics up, make people think a little bit and laugh a little bit, and then maybe they go home and digest it and go, oh, that's really true. So that's one of the things that I love about comedy.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think, like, I was listening to Joe. You listen to Joe Rogan at all? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was talking about comic. He talks about comedy quite a lot, and he said it's like a weird. He says like a weird world, and he's like this. He said, "Oh, what's he talking about? He was talking about fear and discomfort, and he said there's no other kind of like role like it where you're kind of in the spotlight, and he said you can't. That was it. He said like you can't afford to not kind of feel discomfort, or you can't kind of put it to the backside, because you're kind of going into situations where people are looking at you, and people might walk out, and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's 100% right. Comedy, doing stand-up comedy is almost like it's your thoughts, it's your feelings, right? Unless you're pretending to be somebody else when you're up there. I'm myself. So it's basically like almost like taking your clothes off and standing there and say, what do you look? Yeah, take a look. What do you think? Because you're really sharing your thoughts, your feelings, your own personal stories from your own life. So if people don't like it, they don't like it, and for me, I think you have to really kind of get your head in a certain space. So when I started doing it, I really had a mission. Like, my mission was to give my point of view on certain topics, make people lighten up and laugh, or make people think. Everybody else has a different, some people are in there just for the laugh. And for me, I was like, if I get one or two people that walk up to me after a set and say, hey, I really like that, or wow, that made me think differently about this, then I'm good. Yeah, maybe I didn't crush, maybe I didn't get the most laughs, but if I like what I gave out to the people that night, then I'm content. But it's a really hard industry. It's super, super, super competitive. It's predominantly male dominated. On open mics, when I got into it in my late 40s, I mean, most of the kids I'm out doing comedy with on an open mic would be in their 20s. I had a variety of different life experience. So like my comedy is completely different from what they're doing. So it's really interesting. And a lot of times at an open mic, it's mostly either other comedians and they don't laugh for each other because they're all thinking about what they're going to say, or you're in a loud bar trying to get people to stop drinking and actually pay attention to you. So it's really like kind of like just smacking yourself against like walking to a wall over again. You have to really love it to keep going after it. But there's something exciting about it. And there's something that, and then if you do get to the point that you get to do some good shows, which I started doing towards the end of the beginning of the year, I started really getting booked on some shows. So to be in a real room where people are there just to pay and listen, that was really a completely different like experience, so it's really fascinating. And comedy is just so interesting to watch because so many different comedians have their own style. And that's what I love about it. Everybody approaches it differently. And I just love hearing everybody's different story or the variety of it, which is what I love about comedy.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think it's great, that you're throwing throw yourself into it, and it's really kind of like inspiring hearing what you're talking about, because I think it inspires other people to then think, oh, perhaps I could try it out and things like that. And there's no excuse really, is there, at the end of the day? And I listen to like a lot of Joe Rogan. I like have you heard of Joey Diaz? Joey Diaz.
Yes. Yep.
I heard him on Joe Rogan. I was like, who's this guy? And I started watching his stuff, and I've never laughed so much in my life. And like he comes from like a place, you just hear it in his voice, and you're like, and he I remember he talked about like having an anxiety attack whilst he was on stage, and when he was doing it, he thought he was doing really bad, and he was feeling all this anxiety,
Yeah.
And when he came off stage, the manager was like, "That was great. Can you do that again next week?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? I just had a full blown anxiety attack."
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it's easy to have an anxiety attack. I mean, you're just up there and everyone's just staring at you. And if
Mm.
the audience isn't really reacting, you can feel it in your head, like, oh my God, they are not digging this. And I think one of the things that's lucky for me is being a bartender. I can kind of like, I don't really, a lot of people do the same set over and over again, or
Yeah.
very similar set, because it's almost like a routine and they get it. And I'm kind of not like, I'm just never trained. I just kind of go with what my gut tells me.
Mm.
I probably don't get to the point as fast as I should with my comedy. I'm not really a setup punchline person. I'm kind of a storyteller. So some people, by the time I'm getting off stage, they're just getting used to what I'm doing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of different. And but I have a variety of different stuff. So sometimes right after coronavirus, I went to go see a show with some of my friends performing, and they were doing it under a tent. So a lot of people were adapting to different ways to entertain people. So I got there one night just to watch, and they go up. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't even done anything in like 3 months. Are you kidding me? And he's like, just jump up. Nobody cares. And I just kind of, it was good to kind of just get up there. And I almost thought I was going to like throw up, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even prepared. But it's just kind of fun to kind of go off the top of your head and see what comes out. And then I go back and I think about it, or I'll like, sometimes I videotape stuff and I'm like, all right, that worked, that didn't work. I could probably polish it up. And then you can kind of see how people react. But it's really an invigorating thing, but it's a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
Comedy is very, very hard, and good comedians just make it look so easy. You know,
Yeah.
they get up, they look like they're just talking, and then when you get up there, you're like, oh yeah, it's nothing like that. That's because they've been doing it for like 10 years, you know. So
Yeah.
but it's very fun, and I
Yeah.
think that if somebody wants to do it, get up there and try. Just understand that it won't be pretty, and that's
Mm.
okay. And I think
Mm.
that's one of the things I love about it, is so many people want everything to be right. You know, like they want to start a business and they want it to be easy and they want it to be perfect, or they want to do comedy. They want it to be, they just want to kill the stage, like, you know, their favorite comedian. And I think the great message about that is life's not going to be fair. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to go the way it does in the movies. It might suck. You might smash your face off the ground, but you're going to get back up, and it's going to get better and better the more you put into it. So I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I love about it. It inspires you to keep going and get and
Mm.
improve. So I think that's
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think Joe Rogan says, like, it's kind of good for your ego, because people might go in there with their ego and then they're not laughed at. You know, then people don't find it funny, and then
Mhm.
it's a bit like I think he talked about like surfing. Like, we had one guy and he talked about surfing. He's like,
Mhm.
it's why surfers are pretty chilled and they don't really have an ego, because they're not in control of the waves and they're being smashed about.
Such a
And
great point.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think like that's kind of like comedy, isn't it? And I remember when I was at school and I had to do like a play. I had like a main part in the Annie musical play, and I had to sing and
Yeah.
dance. And I remember, like, the lights and the people watching. And the first kind of day we did it, I had like stage fright, and I remember just kind of
Mhm.
going blank. And it's frightening, isn't it, in those situations? But
Yeah.
I think, like you said, there's so much growth to be taken from that world of comedy, isn't it?
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's what I think in general about life. I think that's, I like to live, right? I love chances. I like trying new things. I think that's what kind of keeps you growing as a person. I think life can be very easy to just kind of get stuck in a rut and just kind of do what works well. And I've never been that type of person. I've always loved learning new things and trying new things, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And I think the reason I've had such an interesting life, or I've done so many things, is because I'm not afraid to try, where so
Mm.
many people will talk themselves out of trying. So that's why I'm always trying to talk everybody else into trying, because I'm just like,
Yeah,
because you never know what's going to happen. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
maybe it'll be really great, you know, and even if it's not, you can do it again. So I think that's what's been kind of cool. Like I've taken so many crazy chances. Like at 22, I moved to New York. I didn't know anybody but my cousin. I slept on a couch, but I always in my head decided I was going to live there at some point, and I just did it.
mm,
You know,
mm,
I auditioned for game shows and I got on, and people told me I was crazy and I was never going to get on. Like, I just feel like, why let other people tell you or decide what you can or cannot do? Right?
mm,
Because they're afraid. So don't listen to what somebody else tells you. Just say, hey, I want to try this and I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work well, you move someplace, you don't like it, you can go home. You know, you want to try something, go out and try it. If it doesn't work out, go back. You got a job, who cares? You can get another job. You know, I don't know why everybody thinks they have to just stick with what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. That's a really, I think that's a really great point. And I think like, you know, not having kind of like your life just cemented in stone as this is the way it is. And like you said, you can adapt and you can
Hmm.
change. And, you know, like if something doesn't work out, then go back to, you know, what was working out for a bit and then try something else. And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How old are you, Adam? How old are
I'm
you?
26.
Yeah, see, I mean, like 26, I'm 49, right? If I ever just stuck myself to like, and that's the thing, like I've been in the service industry for a very long time. And I said this to somebody the other day. I'm like, now maybe somebody might look at me and they might not think that I'm successful, right? Because all right, so they might, oh, Kristin, she's a bartender. I mean, I'm a sales rep for
Mm,
such and such company, right?
mm,
So it's
mm,
maybe to somebody else, I'm not successful. But to
mm,
myself, I feel like I'm successful because
mm.
when I get up in the morning, I like who I am. I like the things that I
Yeah.
do.
Mm,
Being a bartender gives me the opportunity to be able to pursue other things on the side. So I kind of get the best of both worlds.
yeah.
I got to raise my son and be home with him during the day. I never had to
Yeah.
send him up to daycare. So for me, it worked well for my life. So I always try to encourage people, success doesn't have to be what everybody else tells you it is. Success is whatever works for you and what
Mm,
you're trying to accomplish in your own life, you
yeah.
know? And I think that's what so many people struggle with because we tell everybody, especially nowadays with social media, we tell everybody like this is successful. He's got a jet, he's got a car, he's got this, right? And I'm like, well, that car and that jet can go tomorrow. Like
Mm,
your business could go under in 10.10 seconds. You know, like
yeah.
you never know what's gonna happen with an economy. I mean, look at like a lot of people that were business owners during this past year. A lot of business owners have lost their business. A lot of people have been really tested. So if you don't focus on working on what makes you happy internally
Mm,
and living your life by your way, it doesn't matter what you're doing if everybody else is gonna like respect it because if you have to face yourself. And on the dark times like this, if you're cool with yourself, you can get through it. And if you can be
mm,
simple, you can get through it. And that,
mm,
you know, like I think that's to me in the beginning of coronavirus, I was like, oh, good, maybe this is gonna get people back to basics. Maybe it's gonna get
mm.
people back to being real and being simple, you know. And it only lasted for a little while. Then everybody started like getting back and like, I got a car. You know what I mean? So I'm a big fan of simplicity, you know, because
Yeah.
I think it, you know, if you can't leave your house, it doesn't matter if you have 5 houses, right? So like that's to me was like what the deciding factor was this year when lockdown came or we were staying home, whatever. It didn't matter that you had a yacht or a plane or 3 houses.
Mm,
You couldn't really,
mm,
you could only be at one house at the time, you know. So to me, I kind of think people focus a little bit more on what you like and what makes you happy internally because it's going to take you
mm.
further. That's just my
Yeah.
personal opinion. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I completely resonate with that. And I think, you know, like we're in lockdown now in the UK till 2nd of December for a month.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we did it for 4 or 5 months, so it doesn't bother me. But but it
Crazy.
but it does put things into perspective because I, you know, have a lot of clothes and things like that. And it's like, well, you know, I can't wear them all at once. I can't, you know, I'm not got nowhere to go. So what's the
Yeah.
point? You know, like it does definitely put things into perspective. And I think like success is a very personal thing. And I think, like
Mm-hmm.
um, you said it, it's being happy with what you're doing and you're doing it well. And, you know, if you're providing value, then that's great. But I think like a lot of it comes down to, you know, what it's a very personal thing, isn't it? And what
Yeah.
appeals to you and not having a jet or or certain number of houses or a certain car. It's kind of what's the right word? It's kind of putting it into a certain way on social media.
Right. I mean, I think like success really, I think if more people focus on success as being true to themselves and the people in their lives instead of the things in their lives, I think we would see a really different mentality. I think we would see
Mm,
a lot more happy people. I think we'd see a lot more fulfilled people. I think that we present success in a completely different way. And for me, I don't know, maybe it's because I had a simple upbringing And my mom was a hard worker and she was a really great role model. So to me, my mom was my hero. My hero wasn't somebody in Hollywood, right? So other people, and I think a lot of people are looking up to different people. And I had a friend on the show last night, on my Instagram live, and we were talking about just how like impacting one person, right? And he was saying how it sounds cliche, but I don't. I think that so many people think to impact or to be success, it has to be big. And I'm a big believer it can be small. Like you having this show and sharing a conversation with somebody might impact one person that felt a little bit differently. And that could change that person's life and so on and so on. So to me, I feel like no matter who you are, you could be making changes in people's lives. You could be making changes in your own life. Just because you're not where you think you're supposed to be, or just because your bank account isn't the fattest, doesn't mean that you're not still doing well. So I think it's an interesting point that people should really maybe look back into.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, and I think it's so important, isn't it, to have that perspective and to practice that as well, just to self-reflect and think back, and look at the things that the things that you do have, and to be grateful for, and
Yeah.
because the people out there have it much worse, and I think you have to kind of always keep that in mind, don't you? And just to because I think a lot of the time people are caught on that hamster wheel where they're just kind of getting the things to please other people and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's what I call it. It's like a hamster wheel. I also call it like the book of bullshit. I call it like this. It's like this guide that they hand everybody when they come out of the womb. Like, here you go, and this is what you have to do. And like, unfortunately, like people don't mean to keep making people do it, but it's like what they were taught, and then they teach it, and then they teach it. It just goes on and on and on and on. And I'm always like, if I talk to somebody and they're not married and they don't want to get married, I'm like, well, good for you. You don't have to get married. Like if I meet a married couple and they don't have kids and they don't want kids, I'm like, good for you. I'd rather have somebody that they don't want to have kids because it doesn't work for their lifestyle than have a kid and not deal with it. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm kind of, I don't like the pressure that we tell everybody that life has to be a specific way at a specific time. I think it makes people rush sometimes through the process. And I spent my early 20s just really kind of experiencing life and doing the things that I wanted to do and trying things. I wasn't really worried about, if I went to I went to a community college for 2 years because I thought I wanted to pursue the arts. And I knew that if I was going to be a starving artist, I wasn't going to have the money to pay back loans. So I didn't want to have that pressure. And I think there's so many parents that put that pressure on their kids because they want to be able to say to their friends, oh my God, Adam's going to such and such university and he's doing great. You know what I mean? And it's just the pressure that they feel because it's what they were taught and taught. So for me with my son, I've always been like, I don't really care what way you go. I just want you to be a happy person. So if that's great. If it's not, then that's fine. And it's really interesting as a parent because then everybody puts that pressure on you. Like, so what does he do? Oh, so you go to this school. What grade is he in? And my son has reading issues, so I didn't send him to high school. We kind of did more of a home approach.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult when you're a parent and you say your kid doesn't go to high school. They're just like, what do you mean? Like they almost get angry and they want to like change your opinion. Well, what about this? And they constantly try to like change it. And I'm like, no, like we're good. Like we're doing our thing. You do your thing. Don't get upset. We can do something different. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means that we're doing what works for ourselves. So I think that's a really interesting thing that I would like more people to understand. That's okay to do differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like there's no kind of right or wrong way kind of path, is there really? And I think like you've just got to do what you're happy with and what you think is right. And I think like not appeal to the masses of what everyone else is kind of doing in society. Because like I think, like I said, there is that kind of pressure people feel, and they feel like they need to adapt and be like their neighbor or their friend or their cousin. And I think, like you said, there's all these scripts that are kind of played out because that's what they were taught and everything else. And I went to university, college in America, and I did criminology, which is like the psychology of criminals.
Yeah.
I retaught maths, I got to university and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want a career in this. So I came
Right.
out and then went back into restaurants and came home. And, I didn't care. I don't care that I dropped out, or drop out of university.
Right.
I've got to do what makes me happy. But I think a lot of time, like you said, people think, oh, what are my parents going to think? I've got to
Mm-hmm.
get X, Y, Z. And it's, I think you have to be happy in what you're doing, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then otherwise you wonder why so many people are unhappy. And I think I think a lot of people are unhappy is because they're trying to fit into a happy mold that isn't the mold for them. So it's like, well,
Yeah,
obviously you're not going to solve it because you're constantly
yeah,
like going against what works for you. So I just think that if you could kind of like, and that's one of the things I'm trying to kind of teach or share with people to kind of like listen to their own gut and follow a path that works better for them instead of the path for everybody else, because I think that could really help so many more people so much quicker than people
yeah,
realize, to say like,
yeah,
no, I'm not going to do that. And I just think that it's so hard for people to say no. No, it's just something people really feel bad about saying it. And they're just not good at doing it. So it's just easy to go, okay, and I just think that it's powerful to be able to like say, no, I don't want to
mm,
do that,
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's standing your own ground, isn't it? And being genuine to yourself. And I think if you're not happy, then it's just going to create issues with other people, and it just kind of domino effects. And I think that's
Yeah.
definitely key.
Right. It grows because then like, okay, now I'm in a job I don't like. Okay, now I'm doing this. And then like, I don't know how to say no, or I'm going along with the grain of my relationship. And then like, you know what I mean? It just kind of like stack. And
Mm,
then as you get older, then responsibilities come in. So then
yeah,
it just, and so I just think a lot of people just kind of, they lose their way or they lose themselves.
mm,
And I think that's why everyone's trying to like now find them. They're all trying to find
yeah,
themselves, where if you
yeah,
find yourself in the beginning, you can kind of like just stick to yourself. I don't know.
yeah,
But I've just always been someone who just kind of, I'm just Kristin and I just do what I want to. It's like, I just
yeah,
know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And so I think it's kind of like one of my strongest skill sets is that
mm,
I might not do what everybody else does, but I do what
yeah,
works for me. And so for me, I think it's been one of my keys to why I think I'm a happy person, you know?
mm,
And so
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to help other people learn, you
Yeah,
know?
no, I admire you for that, and I think it's a great, mindset and great way to be. I think it's great that you've kind of got that, in yourself and that attitude to life. And I think hopefully people will listen to this and think about things and take something from it, which I'm sure they will, because it does make you think. It does make you think about where you're at and the things that you're doing. When you talk about these things, and yeah, I think it's definitely powerful as well. Do you read at all? Do you have any favorite books or anything like that?
God, everybody always asks me that. I'm so not such a good reader. Like I'm trying to get
Or
better into like listening to books on tape. Um, but I like I told somebody the other day I did read Russ. I don't know if you know Russ the rapper. He has a book called "It's in Your Head," and he has a very similar mindset to me. And it was a very easy read. So like I read that because I'm trying to write a book. So I have been trying to look at more books that kind of write the way that I would like to write mine, looking for kind of some inspiration. So I've been kind of looking through some. So I've been really doing a lot more research than actual reading at the moment. But a couple people have reached out to me and told me some other books that I should be getting. So somebody told me Atomic Habits is really good. So that's on
yeah,
my
yeah.
list of one that I want to get to read. Um, but yeah, so I don't really have a lot that I can share for books at the moment,
No,
but
no, it's fine.
on my list. Yeah. Any
Yeah,
any
no.
any any that you like that you read that you think are good?
I I always talk about Think and Grow Rich. It's a
Yeah.
pretty good classic. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading one at the minute called The Third Door
Mm-hmm. And
by
what's that about?
Alex Banyan, and that talks about how there are kind of three doors in life. So different ways of getting your needs met and opportunities. So like he used an example like the nightclub. So you can queue up and get in, or
Yeah.
there's a VIP entrance, or there's
Right.
the kind of thingy around the back. Um, and different ways of kind of, do you know what I mean, approaching situations and getting success through
Ooh,
situations. So
that sounds really interesting. I actually want to check that out now because that's fascinating because it kind of like makes people think like, how do I approach life, or how do I approach my, that's
Yeah.
really sounds really cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it reminds me of what you told me about, because when I first connected with you, I didn't realize that you was on Tea with Gary Vee, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and you said that you just kept on messaging him, and that's like that third kind of door into that kind of situation.
It's usually, it's funny because I'll give a little backstory. I'll give a backstory to Gary Vee. I was sharing inspirational messages with my nieces. They're in high school. I used to watch them every day. And then when my son got older, I needed to focus on him. So I wasn't going to see them through their junior year and high school years. And it's really formative years for teenagers. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start sending them a message of the day on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to make them feel positive, or just little tidbits. And then they started sharing with their friends, and it started growing. And I stumbled upon a Gary Vee quote, and I was like, who's this guy? He says a lot of the same things as me. So I wasn't really into social media. And then I knew he was going to be in Boston one day. So I just showed up where he was going to be to introduce myself to him. And I met him for like 10 seconds. And I said, hey, I'm Kristin. I want to build a brand. I want to come to New York. And he goes, yeah, email me. And then he walked away. So for like 2 years, almost 3 years, I thought that we were supposed to have a conversation. So I was just DMing him and like always liking all of his comments, and just like, really being like, I was convinced that we were going to have a conversation. So fast forward to like coronavirus, I sit down one day. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have 30 days off from the restaurant. I'm going to try to write my book finally. I'm going to sit down and try to get all my notebooks together and get my stuff on paper. And then Gary Vee came on and was like, hey, I'm doing Tea with Gary Vee. Send a question. You can come on and talk to me. And I was like, damn, I'm going to do this. So I started sending him a question every day to the text line. And then one day I got a text and was like, you're on. And then like that Thursday I went on, and we just had like this really crazy conversation. And he was like, Kristin, I love you. People are going to love you. Go do a show tonight. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, just do it. And I was like, all right. So then that's why I started doing an Instagram live show. And I kind of made it Monday through Friday. I was going live every night. And I thought it was going to be like 3 weeks. It wound up being a 3-month endeavor. I was on every night except for 2 nights. I stayed on every single night. I found different people to talk to every day. I made it almost like the bar. I kind of had a different theme for each night. And it was really such a great experience because I met so many amazing people through Instagram. I connected a lot of really cool people. I built really great friendships with a lot of the people that were on. And when I went back to work at the bar in June, I still kept it on Wednesday. So I still do the live show every Wednesday. So I just pick random people that I like to have a conversation with, that I think that can share a cool story, maybe motivate somebody. And so it's just been, I just am such a believer of connecting with people and believe in yourself. If you really believe something's going to happen, just keep going at it. It doesn't matter if the door shuts on your face 10 times, just keep knocking, because I think eventually it will open if you really believe it's supposed to. And I'm a big believer of DMing people. Like, I've just reached out to so many cool people that have been like, sure, I'll come on. And just the cool conversations I've had with so many amazing people. So like you were saying, with coronavirus, a lot of people have tapped into using social media to kind of connect, or start podcasts, or go live, or share stories. And I think that, you do the best you can with the situation you're given. So I try to tell people, like, just find something that can kind of help you right now to kind of connect with cool people or look for information. So that's that little story.
Yeah, no, it's really motivating and inspiring, Kristin. And I think like it really just shows, like how, you are in full control of, like, your life and what's happening. If you want something bad enough, then you'll get it by putting in that work, consistently, whatever that avenue is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just, they give up too quickly. Like, it's 3 no's and they're like, oh, forget it, it's not going to happen. I mean, my husband was like, he's going to get a restraining order on you, because I was like, I would DM him for everything. And I would be like the first person to comment, and him and his friend were laughing. They're like, you're so crazy. I'm like, yeah, you'll say I'm crazy when I'm sitting in his office one day. So I just feel like, and that's another thing. Like, I just feel like people just have to be like, he was saying persistence. Like, I'm very persistent. Like, if I believe in something, I'm like a dog with a bone. Like, I will stick with it. And I just want more people to be persistent. Like, don't just give up. Like, if you really want something and you really believe in it, whether it be a business, whether it be, changing your life, getting healthy, whatever, it's not going to be an easy road to change something or create something. And I don't really know what I'm creating. I'm just being persistent and consistent, and I'm just giving and giving. And like he says, just give value, share, share, share. And however it's supposed to translate, I believe the path will, I'm just a big believer in the universe. So I believe the path will open up the way it's supposed to go, or I'll just kind of get my guide and things will start to ripple. One of my friends that I had a conversation with, same thing with him. He hit a really rough patch in his life. Started making these energy bars, and then like everything kind of went into like just the universe just opened it up, and now it's a business. So I just want to encourage people, even if you're having a dark time right now, or you think that it's not going to work, just don't give up on yourself just because things are hard. Hard is how you get it. Hard is part of the journey. So
no, definitely. No, I love that, and I totally believe in what you said, and I agree, and I think it's kind of part of that process, isn't it? I think if you want something that you've not had or done before, it's going to be hard and difficult, and especially creating like a new narrative. But over time, it just builds a bit like a snowball, doesn't it? And it just kind of gravitates. And no, I agree. It's
yeah. Exactly. You've got it exactly right. That's what it is. It starts kind of like, it starts slow and maybe it's small, and you push it and you're pushing. You don't think it's going to really start to, you don't think it's going to grow. But then all of a sudden, when it starts to get a little bit easier to push it, all of a sudden it gets really big, and you start seeing it come to life. So yeah, I think that's what's kind of interesting about it too, because it's a journey, right? And then you're kind of like, every time you have a failure, you learned a lesson. And every time something good happened, it fires you up to keep going. So kind of take the plus and minuses as they're coming and just kind of go with it and see where it gets there. I don't know. That's just kind of like, I think life is interesting, and that's what I'm doing right now. Like, it's been a hard year for a lot of people, and even when I'm having a bad day, I have to remind myself, okay, listen, it's been a hard year. I can only control what I can control. I can't control everything that's going on around me. So what can I do when I get up this morning that's going to make my day better? And all I can do is come and show up for people and come and show up for my family. And that's what I do. And then I have a good day. It kind of keeps me going. I have a bad day. I say tomorrow's a new day. And that's all I can really do.
No, I agree. And I think that's like the mentality, people should have, isn't it? To, be better than who you were yesterday and just keep on going and not to stop if it doesn't work out the first or second time. As I find, if if things don't work out, you kind of build that resilience through failing. Rather, like you said, sometimes people don't have anything happen, and then something happens, and they don't know how to deal with it because they've not had it happen. But just keep on going.
Yeah, that's exactly, because when you have a failure, you're like, oh, I've already gone through that. So I know that I can do it again. You know what I mean? So like, and I'm like, come on, anybody that you look up to, all these young people that look up to all these business owners, you think that they just got there in one day? No, they like failed a million times. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of famous people and a lot of business owners didn't become business owners or successful in entertainment industry to like their late 30s. Like not everybody was famous at 16. Most of them hit their stride 36, 42, 46. So, I mean, that should make young people feel excited about the journey and what they can learn through the process. And I mean, like if you're taking chances at 24, can you imagine like where you'll be by 44? So if you just keep that mentality. So
no, I agree. And it's good to reflect on that, isn't it? Because I saw one of Joe Rogan's old podcasts. I think it was episode 143, and it was 7 years ago. And I looked at the studio, and there's like a guy. There was like a guy on a couch in the back smoking, and I was like, "What the hell was going on?" And he had like some crappy projector on the wall, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "You can see, where he's come from." And you're like,
yeah. And I mean, now he's got the huge Spotify contract and all that. So I think that's what people have to understand. Like, for me, I've been taking the journey. So like every night when I go on the Instagram live, it's been like a stepping stone. It's like building bricks. Like I've learned how to talk, like have conversations with people in and all different walks of life. That's kind of what I do behind the bar, but now I'm doing it with a live camera and people making comments. So you have to learn how to adapt. If someone's saying something in the comment section, you have to kind of be like, okay, and read along and talk. So I just feel like it's kind of exciting because you're learning a skill set, and then you get better and better at having a conversation. I'm trying to start my podcast in the next couple of weeks. So then when that comes out, that'll be a whole nother process. So it's just kind of exciting pieces of the puzzle, and it's just kind of putting one brick on top of the other and building something. So kind of enjoy it as an experience and a ride, and see what it grows into, instead of being like, oh, it's not the greatest, or oh, that video sucked, or oh my god, I hate listening to my voice, or I don't like the way I look on camera. Like, oh god, I can't, I hate my voice and on camera, but I just do it. I'm like, whatever, I can't worry about it.
No, that's it. Yeah, you just gotta just go with it, haven't you, and just take that action, because you don't know, do you? It just takes one person to listen to it, and it might blow up, and the impact that you have on other people as well, and you just don't know who's listening or who that person knows and what doors that's going to open as well.
I totally, that's what I always say to everybody. I'm like, you do not know who's just scrolling through and something came by through a reel or through YouTube or whatever. And they said, oh, I like that person's attitude. I like that person's personality, or that was a really great interview. Like, you just never know. So I'm like, so why aren't you trying? I mean, my son's a perfect example. He loves to make costumes, and he made this amazing costume based off a video game character from this video game called Five Nights at Freddy's. And everybody thought the costume was insane. He put it on TikTok, and he got a lot of likes off him doing like this dance to the song. But then on Halloween, he did like a speed up of him putting it on, and it's up to like 3.5 million views on TikTok. And
I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it.
Yeah, we were blown away when it was like 1 million views. And then like I looked at it yesterday, and it was like 3.5. He's got 76,000 followers on TikTok. And he was funny. He goes, Mom, the people like what the people like. So he doesn't, and he's not recreating that. He just puts out what he wants to put out. He doesn't want the pressure of putting things out constantly. So I just let him do what he's gonna do. But but he's just following what he wants to put out. And you know what people are gonna react. I mean, he's just put it on a costume, and like it blew up. So that's why I just want to encourage people, just try. Like, you don't know what someone's gonna like or not like. So just, if you like it, who cares? Just do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's a great point. And I admire your son for doing that, just for doing what he likes doing and just putting it out there. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
And he's not doing what everybody else does on TikTok. What he does on TikTok is nothing like anybody else. So I'm like, he's not following the trends. He just does what works for him. And it's whatever. And then even some people don't like, there'll be some negative comments, and he's like, it's to the internet, it's to social media, there's nothing he can do. He doesn't sit there and cry and go in his room like, I'm not putting anything else out. He just goes, oh, he can't do anything about it. Let them fight amongst themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so he's got a really good attitude. I know most adults are like, oh my God, they said 3 things to like my costume. And he's just like, who cares? So it's really cool. Yeah, he's
that's
getting
awesome.
Head on the shoulders. Yeah, he's really
he's
fun.
doing great.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So yeah.
That's awesome. But like, where can people find you on social media and things like that?
So I do the majority of my stuff on Instagram, and that is Kristinbeingkristin, Kristin being Kristin. That's also the name of my YouTube channel. That's got some of my older comedy on it. I'm going to be revamping my YouTube channel, and then when the podcast comes out, I'll be making the announcements to the Instagram page. So that's where people can find me for now. And it's just, I just put a lot of some positive content, some funny stuff. Fridays I do a funny rant called Are You Fucking Kidding Me Fridays. I take a funny news story and I rant about it. I get a lot of stuff out of the Guardian. There's a lot of good stories come out of the Guardian. So that seems to be one of the ones that I find some funny stuff. And I just try to have a page that makes people lighten up, laugh, and learn and inspire people. So that's what I'm just trying to do.
Yeah, no, it's lovely, and it's when I first went on your page, I saw that and I laughed, and I read it and I was like, that's classic. I was like.
Yeah, so I know you gotta have fun in life. I mean, if I can put people into the weekends with a little chuckle, especially with like how tough things are, then that's what I just try to do. And some people try to get into like a big fight about it. I'm like, listen, it's just a funny rant. We're not trying to solve the world problems. We're just trying to make people like lighten up a little bit. So don't take it too serious, everybody. Yeah. So
no, that's it. No, that's great. Yeah. And I'll promote your content, and I'll always share your stuff, and I wish you all the best, in all that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. I'm really grateful, to connect with you and to be able to do this. It really means a lot.
Well, that's awesome. I hope people got something out of the conversation, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed our time.
No, that's it. Same here. But stay tuned, and I wish you all the best.
Okay, cheers.